Hi, I'm Samantha, and this is part one of What is the Bible? It's a beginner Bible study that is typically done at my house with several other women, and we record for people who may not be able to make it that week, or maybe you live far away, or maybe you're just not affiliated with my church or my community and you just want to know more. Anybody is welcome, and I'm excited to get started. So, the first Bible study did film, but I had some technical difficulties and I was not able to use it. So, I unfortunately, if you're just joining in, if you didn't attend at my house, you're not going to be able to see the discussion or hear the discussion that happened. And for that, I'm sorry. But if you'll bear with me, I'm not the most technologically sound person, but I am learning. So we are just going to go ahead and get started. Okay. My reason, just excuse me for being weird for talking into a camera, but the reason that I started this is because over the years, I've learned so much about the Bible that would have made it easier back when I was younger to try to read the Bible. And it's a lot of context, a lot of history, and just how to look at it differently than just a book. And that's where I want to share with other people who may be struggling as well. So if you've ever opened up the book of John because somebody told you to. I'm guilty of that. I tell people to read the book of John all the time. Or Genesis, and you're like, what am I reading? What is this? Where is this? Who are these people? How do I pronounce these names? Hopefully you'll take some things away from this class. All right. So the questions that hopefully we're going to answer in this study is what is it? Number one, who wrote it? When was it written? Where did any of these events take place? Why is it even, why do we have it? Why do we study it? And how is it organized? Because that does make a difference if you've ever noticed. So, as you can see, we're going to cover the who, what, when, where, why, and how, just like we did in school. But we're not really going to follow that order. So, the first thing is the what, and it's a collection of 66 books with an estimated 40 authors. It was written over a span of 1,500 years and in three languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And again, thinking of the Bible more as a library than a book is, it's been life changing as far as my Bible study goes. I've known that kind of for a long time, but when I actually realized how it is just a lot of books over a lot of time, that's when I really started being able to mentally process it. So most people know the Bible is separated into two sections, which is the Old Testament and the New Testament, but there are also categories and subcategories within those. So you might be surprised to know it's not chronological. It's not in chronological order. Um, it's actually categorically ordered, both the Old and the New Testament. They're not, you don't read from Genesis to Revelation and it be in chronological order. Um, the Old Testament follows the nation of Israel. It may mention other countries, but by and large, it is not a world history library. It is Israel history and how the nation was founded and leading up to about 400 years before Jesus was born. So they are sectioned into the books of the law, which is the Torah or the Pentateuch. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The books of history, the books of wisdom or poetry, and prophets or prophecy. And within prophecy, or the books of the prophets, there are some kind subcategories, major prophets and minor prophets. That doesn't necessarily mean some prophets were more important than others. It's just really that their books were longer and had more to them than the minor prophets. The New Testament documents the actions of Christ and his sacrifice for us. And it also has 4 categories. So it's the Gospels, which are the actions of Christ. History of the church is what it's usually, and letters or epistles, and prophecy, which is Revelation. And if you'll look in chronological and categorical order, we've got some differences, right? There's Job typically comes before Genesis in chronological order, and that's kind of a little bit strange. But if you think about the first 5 books, or the books of the law, were written by Moses, and he had a lot of backtracking to do when he wrote Genesis. He was several generations after Noah and after Adam and Eve, of course. So when he wrote Genesis, he was writing several hundred years of history. And the book of Job is known to be the oldest written book of the Bible. Typically, if you choose a chronological order in reading the Bible, Genesis and Job kind of interchange with each other. But yeah, the first 5 books of the Bible the first 6 books of the Bible, Job, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, are in chronological order. Then you go Joshua, Judges. A lot of these are still okay with the size, but then you get Chronicles before Kings. And if you just look and compare, a lot of differences, a lot of time has elapsed where Ezra is in categorical order, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, and they're all the way down here towards the end of the Old Testament. So I learned a lot when I read chronological order. A lot of stuff just started to make sense because I read this thing happening in this book, and then a little while later, hey, it's happening again, as opposed to when the multiple times I've read the book in categorical order, I'm like, I'll read something and then way later, oh, this is happening again, or what? It just kind of confused me a little bit. And I think it confuses a lot of people. So knowing how it's constructed and knowing the chronological order is really helpful. And in the New Testament, the color coding doesn't really work because the categories are in chronological order. But if you look at the letters, we have Romans first. And in all honesty, Romans chronologically is way down here. So a lot of the letters that Paul wrote, or James, Peter, they're kind of all over the place. So reading in chronological order really helps if that's what you're going for. If you're really wanting to understand the history of everything that happened, I highly suggest a chronological reading. And then this is just part of your study guide. And if you don't have one, reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to get you one. But these are maps that we are going to use throughout the study. This just helps us to understand where everything was happening. Now, this is the old table of nations. So as you see, Ham, Shem, Japheth, if you aren't familiar with those names, those are Noah's sons who repopulated the earth after the flood. And this is, I think I'm missing a map in here, so I'm sorry, I'll include it in one of the next studies. This is a larger map. This is the New Testament world. We've got Italy in there, as you can see, and just a few other countries. And this is more of a modern day map. So if you compare right here, the first with everything that's going on, look right here where Shem is. Saudi Arabia and Iran and Egypt and Sudan and Libya. So these happen in very real places, and being able to look at a modern day map and see where is this in the world now. And this right here, tiny little spot, is a very important place for the Bible. So we will get into the maps hopefully later on in our Bible study, but for now, that is all I have. If you have any areas that you in particularly struggle with understanding the Bible, something, just a hang up, something that you just can't get past, we are going to discuss that. We are going to tackle those together. So far, I have, from our discussion, we have genealogy. That throws so many people off, and it's hard to read. It's hard to understand why it's there. And it really does stop a lot of people from going forward in the Bible because it's just so hard. So that's one that we're going to be doing a deep dive in, and we'll make it interesting. Don't worry. The other one is the customs and traditions at the time, because they lived life differently than we did. They had different societal standards. They had just everything about their life was 100% different than ours. So understanding the customs and traditions is, in certain, especially times, is important. So we're going to tackle that. Historical context, and then translations, there are so many different translations of the Bible. We're going to go over that and maybe help you choose one. So that is what I have. If you've liked it, I hope that you will join us either in person or on here. You're more than welcome to just stay virtually. But I really, really hope that this Bible study helps you get more into the Word. Thanks.